everyone, it's Steph here if you don't already know, and on this channel I just talk about all things careers and all things lifestyle. And in today's video, in response to a request that I received in my Instagram DMs, I'm going to be taking you through step by step how to relate a deal back to the firm and to the work that lawyers do in said firm. Now, that might sound very abstract to you, but hopefully through the process I'm going to show you, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. We'll first of all look at where exactly should you be going to be looking for deals or articles, because I do think that this can actually really help you in terms of knowing how to relate it back to the firm and how to relate it back to the work that lawyers do. Then, of course, we'll look at what within an article are the kind of keywords that you need to be looking out for to help you work out which practice area does this relate to, or how exactly can you relate it back to a firm. And then finally, we're going to be looking at some of the key tasks that lawyers do in some of the most common areas that you would have heard of, just so that can help you know how you can relate every article that you read back to the law firm and back to the work that a lawyer does. Now, I hope you find this video very useful. Please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe, and do give me a follow on my Instagram as well. Let's get straight into the video. One key hack that I'm actually going to share with you today is that when you're trying to work out how to link a news story back to a firm and therefore back to what it is that lawyers do within that firm, you shouldn't actually start off with the news story. I found it more beneficial to start off with the firm's LinkedIn. Now, why would I do that? Let's pick a random firm as an example. Let's just go with Latham & Watkins, right? So if I go onto Latham & Watkins' LinkedIn page and I scroll through and I see that, yep, they've posted a number of deals. They've also posted some articles that they find interesting. This tells me a lot about what that particular firm is interested in terms of maybe where their clients are based or in terms of the work that they are really good at. So let's go a little bit further into this then. What example should I use? Something that seems interesting to me, we've got this deal of a private equity investment fund investing in a sports club in Australia. Fine. This is interesting to me just because I like to kind of follow things in private equity. Cool. So now that I've seen that this is a deal that Latham & Watkins have actually posted, I'm now going to go back to Google and I'm going to just type in, I don't know, increase in investments or increase in private equity investments or something like that in sports clubs. A very generic kind of phrase, but that will allow me to see what kind of recent articles have come up about this topic. So now I can see some articles about a topic that I know for a fact that Latham & Watkins are going to be interested in because Latham & Watkins themselves posted it. Now that I've got into this article, it's now important for me to actually have a look through the article and see what practice areas would be involved here, why is it that Latham & Watkins would be interested in this kind of thing, and then we can look at what is it that lawyers actually do with this kind of deal. So let's take a look at the first bit first. What practice areas are involved? Well, we've got a massive clue in the title. We've got private equity there. And just for your knowledge, because you honestly just might not know, private equity is a type of commercial law that falls under corporate law. So generally anything that's going to be corporate, that's going to be private equity. Some other kind of practice areas that may fall under corporate law is also mergers and acquisitions. You may also have some advisory elements in there as well. Some different kind of regulatory advisory practice groups may also fall under corporate as well. So that's just for your personal knowledge. So when you see these kind of words like private equity, your mind should automatically be thinking corporate. Fine. That's how you relate it back to what practice area may be involved. Now you need to kind of be able to think of the wider picture. So after you've actually had a look at the article in whole, you need to be able to go through and determine what other practice areas may be involved. Because I'm going to tell you, you don't even need to work this out. I'm going to tell you that most corporate teams tend to have support from all the other teams in a law firm. So corporate teams don't tend to work in isolation. The PE team is likely going to have to request that the finance team, the IP team, the regulatory team, even the litigation team, to be honest, comes in, especially when it comes to things like due diligence before the private equity investment actually goes through. So you want to be thinking to yourself, with this particular deal that's being announced, or with this particular trend that's being shown in this news article, what other teams do I think are going to be involved? Now, the best way for you to actually show that you are able to relate this particular news article or deal back to the firm that you're interested in is you actually mentioning the correct practice area for that firm. What do I mean by this? In the beginning, I said that private equity is something that falls under corporate, which is true. However, different firms have different names for their practice areas. So some firms might just have a corporate practice area, which encompasses both private equity and mergers and acquisitions. Some firms may have a separate private equity team, a separate mergers and acquisitions team, etc., etc. So if you want to be able to show that you have understood how the particular article that you are reading relates back to the firm that you are interested in, a very small thing that you can do to show that you've been able to relate it is you mentioning the correct practice area that that firm actually uses. Head over to the firm's website, head over to their graduate recruitment page, and just have a look and see what are the practice area names that they have. So if we use Latham & Watkins as an example, just have a look at what practice areas do they have, and then from the list that you've got there, highlight the ones that you think are relevant to the article that you've been reading. Hopefully that all makes sense in terms of A, how you research the deal and then the article, and then B, one easy way that you can relate it back to the firm that you are talking about. So what's the final thing that we should be looking at? Well, let's have a look at what work would lawyers actually be doing here. Now, it's really important to understand what the typical makeup of a team will probably be in majority of the deals that you may end up working on. Your typical makeup is going to look something like you having a partner, and that partner is either going to be the relationship partner, so the partner who just happens to know the client quite well, ideally also the partner who's a specialist in that particular area, but if they're not, then they may enlist the help of another partner who is a specialist in that area. So you may have one or two partners on the deal. Then you're probably also going to have your senior associate who is going to oversee all of the main documents. You're probably going to have your junior associate who's going to oversee all of the processes and making sure that things are done on time. And then you've got your trainee who generally acts as a support to the whole team, but will also be similar to the junior associate, facilitating processes. So what tasks would a corporate trainee or a PE trainee likely be doing? Well, a couple of different things. They may be doing some research. It may be that during the particular course of the transaction, the client needs to know one or two things, and therefore as a trainee, you'll likely be using a lot of Westlaw or LexisNexis to be researching particular aspects of law, distilling that down into maybe a client memo or into a digestible format over email so that you can send that correspondence to the client. You may also be involved in some due diligence. Now, especially with a deal of this nature, you will want to be making sure that the client is making the right decision in the sense that they have looked at all of the possible factors. And what's something that a trainee will have to do here? Well, you're going to have to conduct some due diligence. What does due diligence actually mean, however? 9 times out of 10 in a deal like this, you will find that the business who is being bought will have to upload a bunch of different contracts into what we call a data site that the lawyers on the other side can then access. And then you'll be responsible for reviewing these documents to make sure that there are no what we call red flags. Red flags meaning any information that you think would stop this deal from going ahead. Those are the kind of things that you want to be highlighting to your client. So you could maybe be in charge of overseeing that process if it is that maybe you have to hand out certain sections of this due diligence to other more specialist teams so that they can conduct their due diligence, and then you can come back and distill and condense all of that information together. Or if it's just corporate due diligence that you're doing, then you may be the person actually conducting that due diligence and actually reviewing all of those documents and checking for all of those red flags. So those are two really, I guess, kind of general things you might be doing. A third thing that you probably will be doing as a trainee is process management, like I mentioned before. So here you might find that you need to set up what we call maybe a CP checklist, if there are any CPs that are required. You may need a signing checklist. So especially when there are a number of documents that need to be signed, it's very helpful to have a signing checklist which documents all of the documents that you have that need to be signed, all of the signature packs that have been sent out to the respective parties, all of the signatures that you have received, so that you can make sure you're on top of having all of the documents that are required to make sure that this deal can go ahead. So those are 3 key kind of tasks that a trainee might be doing. And depending on what the deal is actually like, there may be some other tasks involved as well. But those are the general tasks that a trainee is probably going to be doing on all of the deals like this in this news article. So hopefully you have found this really quick how-to video helpful. If you have any other questions that you'd like to send through to my Insta DMs, or you'd like to comment down below, please feel free to do so. Please do make sure that you like, comment and subscribe, and I'll be back again with another video soon.